The last of 32 children living in abject poverty and with very little prospects at a remote village in Nandom in the UpperWest region, he defied all the odds and ended up in the #1 public health university in the world. I'm referring to the Johns Hopkins University. Our guest today on People and Places is Mwinnya. Stay tuned. Okay, Mwinnya. Fozami Agabeson.
Oh, Ubeson.
Great, I'm impressed. I actually didn't think you still remember the language. I mean, been away for, quite a while.
Not too long. Man cannot forget his past, that he don't know what is coming after.
Very true.
Yeah.
Thank you for speaking with us, Mwinnya.
Thank you.
Okay, so a household of 32.
Yes.
Wow, that's a large.
That's only the siblings. You are not even counting the wives.
7 of them.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued. Right from the start, did you have it in mind that you'd end up at Johns Hopkins, or did you think about schooling in the States?
Oh, my brother, if an angel had dropped down 10 of them to tell me that over 20 years ago I will be walking by the walls of Johns Hopkins, I would have looked straight into the eyes of those angels and said, this one there is a lie. Honestly, it's one of the least things I ever had on my radar. Yeah. Even traveling out was never part of the discussion. I mean, if you grow up and you have families who are already there, there's that connection, or maybe you are in Accra, where, Accra is more closer to the outside world, that's where the international go. Then the thinking of traveling is likely. But from where I am, the concept of traveling or walking around the walls of Hopkins has never been part of the plan.
Your dad has 7 wives. Strong man. Was he a chief or something?
Oh no, he wasn't a chief. He wasn't a chief. I really don't understand, but I think at that point all it takes is that you have good land and you have enough food to take care of children. And also it seems to me like at that point having more wives and children was economically advantageous, because you need a lot of hands at the farm. And so a man with 7 wives and 32 children, you have all the labor you need. So I think it was quite like a norm around the time. Having more children was actually an advantageous thing.
32. That's 2 teams with reserves. Football.
Yeah, and I was the youngest, probably.
Oh no, you were the youngest?
Yeah.
Okay, no, as in disadvantageous, but yeah. How was that like?
So like I said, I was very young. I mean, honestly, as you know, I don't know my actual age, because at that time there are no records anywhere. But from pictures, it seems like I might have been like either 5 or something less. I don't know, that he passed away, and so like I didn't notice much. I didn't understand much. However, just after he passed, a lot of things changed, which immediately, even as a younger child, tells me that something terrible had happened.
Let's talk about the education. I mean, 5 years, you lost your dad.
Yeah.
6, 7, 8 till you were a teenager.
Yeah.
How was the transition school-wise?
So, my mother, I mean, I'm very, very thankful for her and the sacrifices. For some reason, I don't know where she got the vision from, but after my dad passed away, and even though it was even difficult to get food for us, for some reason, she would never let go our education. Like, if she will sacrifice her life, she will. After my dad passed away, at some point things became very critical, especially food.
Yeah.
That an uncle who was in Kwame Danso came down, and traditionally he requested that when he is eating, he will need someone to hold the bowl as he eats. And so traditionally, he requested that my mother, he would like to take me to Kwame Danso with him so that when he's eating, I will hold the bowl. I mean, that is a traditional way of basically saying, give your son to me.
Yeah.
There were promises that when we get there, he will put me in school and everything. And so that is where then I continued primary there and then JSS there, and then I completed from that point. So after junior high school, he sat down with me, and this is after spending about 10 years with him. And then he said, and remember, the whole of this time, none of these places were free. There were school fees and everything.
Exactly.
And then he said, this is how far
he can take
it.
Do. Okay.
And so that it's now time for me to go back to the village for my other family to continue
where he's left off.
Yes. And at this point, definitely, I didn't make it good grades enough to go to any of my top choices. So I went back to the village, and then it was time to now hunt for a secondary school that will accept me.
Okay.
And I had a brother at that time who was looking through. I am not familiar with the North at all. And eventually, my brothers were able to secure admission for me at Boli Secondary School.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, Boli Secondary School was nothing like what we have today. You know, after Muhammad became president, you go there now and
it's
world class.
Yeah.
But when I was there, things were very rough. I remember there were times for about 3-4 weeks I never washed my clothes because there was no soap. And then you call home, things are tough for the family. So what I'll do is I'll wait late in the night, around 12 or 1, when people are asleep.
It was a boarding school?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Poly was a boarding school. When people are asleep, we'll go into the bathroom. You know the bathroom is that communal bathroom.
Large, everybody goes to bath.
Just standing there.
So
people will bath, and then when the soap is
the pieces,
with the piece, they will be there. So I will go in, pick them, mash them together, and I'll have this high quality soap. I remember a day I actually decided to quit school. And I told myself that he who fight and run away live to fight another day. And this was after about 3-4 weeks. Every single day I have to beg for a pen to write. One day I asked a friend, and he asked me, when you were coming to school, did you pass through a window? Did your parents not see you walk through the door? And didn't they know that when we come here, we write? So that was the day that was a borderline for me. So I decided that was the end of it. So I went back to our hostel in the bush. There's this big tree. Sat under the tree, and I cried and cried and cried alone. So there was a friend coming into the bush. He came around and asked what was happening. I couldn't utter a word. So there was a Catholic reverend, a Catholic sister who was also a tutor in the school and from our village. So the guy went and reported it to her. She came and got me and asked me why. And I told her for the past 3 weeks, I don't even have anything, gari, soap, nothing. I haven't washed my clothes. And that none of that bothered me. But the last thing to happen was the pen. And then she requested that when we closed that day, I should come to the sister's convent at Boli to see her. When I went, I think she gave me like 10 cedis to go and buy gari, buy sugar, buy some oil, get some soap, paste, and that if there's any change, I should return it. So I went and bought those things, and it was left with, I think, 4 cedis, which is 4,000 old currency.
Yeah.
And I brought it back, and the woman gave me 2 cedis out of that. And for the first time, like, I could be part of my colleagues again. I can go to common market. So from that point, I actually came to Accra here to a woman who met me way earlier when I was still at Kwame Danso with my uncle. That woman, among all the people, even including my biological mother, what the woman did to me, I can't recollect ever getting anything similar to that from anyone that I've ever encountered.
What did she do?
She treated me more than a son. And then, so I was with her. She was selling on the street, tudu. On the street, she was selling bags. She asked me to be looking on the street. All the businesses young guys like me were doing. Which one would I like to do? That was the time this short Coke is called Brrr. That was the time that we were the pioneers.
It was in vogue. Okay.
Yes. So I noticed that, yeah, there were pure water, yogurt, Tampico. But this Coke, when they stop and the heat is on, you see a lot of people around.
Okay.
So I told Auntie Maggie that I would like to sell Coke. So then I started selling that Coke on the street. So the whole of Tudu area, Accra Central, that is my zone. And it was going really well. And I was making good interest. Then she asked me what I wanted to do. With my results, the only thing I was qualified to do in Ghana was the certificate in community health nursing. I was not qualified for registered nursing, teacher training college, poly, to even talk of university. So that was out. So I told her that's what I wanted to do. So she said, okay, work and save, so that when the forms are out, you buy it. So yeah, I did that, and then eventually certificate form, nursing forms were out. And at this point, I have a lot of money. So I went and bought 3 forms. And then I told Auntie Maggie, it's time to go home. So I went home, emptied all my packets and the forms in front of my brothers and said, this is what I have. What do we do? And nursing school, I mean, any school. In Ghana, there's the mentality of protocol.
Yeah.
So we started brainstorming, where should we throw these forms? So after we decided to shoot the forms out, I returned back to Accra, business continues. And then after a couple months, I got invited for an interview at all the 3 schools.
Wow.
So I went around and did all my interviews. And there were high hopes, especially for Jirapa, because that is home base.
Yeah.
Oh, to my greatest surprise, Jirapa, my name was not even in the waiting list.
Not even the waiting list?
Not even in the waiting list. So I was like, okay, down. And my morale was completely out. And then Tanoso, at least an uncle is there. So the protocol is
Connections, more, okay.
We waited. And from the day the admission lists were out up to today, my uncle have never picked my call. And I've never seen him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a blow.
Probably that tells you the outcome.
Yeah. Wow.
So then at this point, I personally just decided to give up Takoradi.
You must have been very distraught.
Because look at these links here. Strong.
The strongest hopes,
so
and then
Takoradi, that one is out. And so it's now time for plan B. So I started thinking of, potentially settling in some village, get a wife, get a lot of children, and then move forward. That was the next thing in line. One day I was at the farm. So then I returned back to my brother at Wenchi, who is a farmer in a village there in Konsia. And I was at the farm alone. And I got a call from a postmaster that I have an EMS letter. And I was like, are you sure the name? He said yes.
Am I the one here?
And he said it's late now, so I should come tomorrow morning to the post office to take it. So after the call, I threw the phone away and I rolled on the ground. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, no, take your time. Maybe it's one of the friends who knows that I'm very frustrated and discouraged. And so they wanted
to prank on you.
Yeah. Then part of me is like, oh, maybe it's true. So needless to say, the next day, the whole night, how can you sleep? Then early in the morning by 3 a.m., mankind was already at the post office. It was closed, of course. So waiting. And they came and opened. They gave me this letter. I've actually been admitted to the Community Health Nurses Training School at Esiama. I almost just lied on the road and then a car should just roll over me. You have no idea, all hopes were lost.
Yeah.
So this brought new life. So within that first year, several things happened, and then the next I know, during the time for elections, I was the SRC president.
No way.
Oh yeah. See, throughout that period, I mean, of course, community, that's the deal. You finish your work, you move on.
So at this point, you wouldn't say, of course, you weren't that well-to-do, but you could, just carry yourself around.
I mean, there was even a lawa.
There was
even a lawa, trust me. So no, the quality of life at this point, up.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't lie about that.
Okay.
And then, and I was also active, very active on campus and both for the district. Assisted with a lot of the immunization programs. So by the time I finished, the school wanted to keep me as a preceptor. The district health office wanted to keep me there. So then there was a deal where I was working both for the school, but also assisting the district when it comes to big immunization.
Okay.
And for the school, I would take students out to remote villages to do home visiting, do child welfare. Like that's the work we do, organize child welfare clinics. And in that process, there was a medical team from Canada.
Okay.
And then they came to partner with Adamos, a bigger mining company there, to provide health services to very remote villages where there are even no clinics. And the district asked that I accompany them. So I was like
They chose you to
the
go.
Staff, the community health nurse from the district to work with the
representative
team.
to go with them.
When I was working with them, my brother, that was where my whole desire to study outside started.
Was born.
They gave me hope, and their approach to health.
Okay.
For the first time, so through the community health training, we did clinicals all around. And I sat next to doctors, Ghanaian doctors, nurses who were like seeing patients. But that team, their approach was completely different. At least in some of my clinical experiences with Ghanaian doctors and nurses, immediately you start to say, oh, mitiya, miya, miyam, or anything, they start writing. By the time you finish, they hand over a sheet to you. Go to this window, dispensaries, they will give you medicine.
Okay.
You go there, they will say, take this. This one, for Mwinnyaa nopa, Mwinnyaa nyumbre, Mwinnyaa anadwo and
And that's it.
And then you walk from there and you are gone. But then with this team, they will do a lot of questioning, do a lot of examination. And after my encounter with them, that was it. I decided that if I will ever do any schooling, that it will not be in Ghana. And that whatever it will take me to study out, it is either studying out or not to study at all and just stay as a community health nurse. While at Esiama, a Peace Corps volunteer was sent to Esiama. And so let me just clear the air. There was zero idea of marriage or even a romantic relationship. And also maybe a little bit on my relationship life. So high school, nothing.
You're the romantic guy?
Like dating or what? Man, you are there. First of all, 3 weeks, you've not washed your things. Food to eat, you don't have. And then you go and you'll be thinking of women. Then there's madness in your liver. So like the concept of women were far off. We wake up and you are just thinking of how to get something to eat. So in the Siama, the story was not very different. I was there as an SRC president, of course. There were several
you have
opportunities.
A lot of
and but it was difficult because at least from learning from my colleagues, this may not be true, but from my colleagues who were dating was a lot of work. You have to start giving job money. Me now, I'm a hustler. I'm still here trying to figure my future out, and then I will be taking it. So like, again, I didn't do well. So the Canada deal was still there. I was very serious, and I wanted to do some volunteering. That was the time Haiti, there was the whole earthquake in Haiti, and there was an NGO asking that they needed some volunteers.
Okay.
The NGO asked for my resume. I'm sorry to say at this point, I didn't even know what a resume was. So Leslie at this point was at the nursing school. And I felt pity for her a little. Because we were in the staff common room. The television station was on a dome, and then the movies they would show were mostly in Tree. And then she's there, and they're doing discussion sometime in tree, and she's just there quiet. So I thought to myself, look, if I was in a faculty, a staff in China, and I entered the staff common room, everybody is speaking Chinese, the TV is on Chinese, how will I feel?
Yeah.
So I decided to approach her and like try to talk to her and try to kind of make her feel part. We became very, very good friends. Friendship was very tight. We cooked together, did a lot of things together. But again, at this point, it was tricky. If she was a Ghanaian woman, it's very easy, you know, if we are in the same culture, our communication of love is the same. So I will get a signal. But in this context, whatever she does, I would think like maybe in America that is normal. You can do it to anyone, even if you are not married or dating. And she was also thinking the same. I mean, we will walk and hold hands. Now in Ghana, it doesn't mean much if I hold hands with you. Not knowing in America, that is the most prominent way of saying that I am dating this person or I'm even married to them. And so she said, I mean later after marriage, she said when we were walking and we held hands, she need to keep telling herself, this is not America, this means nothing in this culture. And then after that, she definitely ruined my Canadian plans. Like the Canada plans were destroyed. And she finished her service in Peace Corps. We lived together in Ghana for about a year before the end of her service. And then things were through. So we went to America. And things were hard for that.
Yeah.
So decided finally that I will apply to community colleges, and I started. And no luck. But then one community college said, come and write an entrance exams, placement exams, they said. And we will decide where to put you. Whether we should put you in college level classes or we should put you as a, we should start you off with some pre-college classes. So I prepared hard. And then I went and took the exams. They were like, you are good. Start with college level classes.
Wow.
So that was the beginning. And for the first time, first day in class, an instructor came in, showed everything, explained that there will be office hours. So what will happen is if she teaches something and you don't understand, there is office hours, you can come one-on-one. And then she will re-explain everything. Lectures were recorded. So I utilized every single indicator, every single resource there. And for the first time after midterm, results came in and I'm seeing like 95, 96. Was like maybe the professor have made some mistake. And so it was the same in all classes. And so from there I got invited into honor societies where it depends on GPA. They will invite you into honor societies. Before I even finished the community college, I started getting invites from universities saying that we will skip your application fees, we will give you scholarship and everything. There was a big scholarship money only for community college students who are ready to transfer into a 4-year university. So community college is 2 years. You move into a 4-year university, you do 2 more years and you get your bachelor's degree.
Oh, okay.
And so they were recruiting us for that. And then that scholarship is big. And their principle was that if you are smart and you want, like, you have a career path, you shouldn't go to, excuse me to say, a lesser university just because of money. So they said, apply to the highest, the best school in your field of interest. Don't let money be the reason.
Wow.
So for me, because of the community health experience, Johns Hopkins University was the ideal.
Ultimate,
That's why we worship in public health. Like, I mean, there's no school.
It's the apex of it.
It is the apex of public health. So my intention for applying to Hopkins was to make sure that I can mention it in my application for the scholarship.
You've been to the best.
Yes, to let them see that at least the guy have a vision is applying to big schools. In fact, that was the main reason. I didn't believe that I would get into Hopkins.
Oh, okay.
And at this point, University of Nevada is a state school. I already have admission. Life is good. I don't know whether to say fortunately or unfortunately. I didn't get a scholarship. But to my greatest surprise, Johns Hopkins gave me admission. And then I also applied to the second best public health school, which is North Carolina, is tied with Hopkins. Is tied with Harvard as second to Hopkins. So I got admission into the first and the second best public health schools. But then at that point, no scholarship. And then you see the fees. Hopkins tuition for one academic year was like $50,000 or $60,000. So that was out of the equation. I'm like, no, thank you, Master. This one, there, we will not. So at that point, it's decided I will go to University of Nevada, do 2 more years, get my bachelor's degree. But then 2 weeks after my admission from North Carolina and Hopkins, I received this financial aid support package from both Hopkins and North Carolina, which basically wipe out all expenses relating to school, tuition, everything.
A full scholarship.
Full one. And then after that, you even have the option where you can get engaged in some activities where you get stipend and some money on top.
Okay.
And so that changed the dynamics.
Yeah.
So then at that point, okay, Nevada is like goodbye there, we are shifting. So Hopkins was a different beast. Completely different environment. So just to give you the kind of undergraduate student you are going to sit with, acceptance rate is like 20%. Even now it's lesser. So out of every 100 students, they will accept
20 people. Wow.
And also most of these students are very young. They're just coming from high school. So we are talking like 18, 19, 20s. And I am here with a wife and child, so non-traditional.
Yeah, Charlie.
Yeah, people who make innovative, I mean, the discovery of even ORS. And then vitamin A preventing child mortality. People who discovered them are the people you rub shoulders with. So it was quite a very, very enriching environment.
Yeah.
So then as undergrad, I have 2 years, right, to finish. I was in undergraduate public health studies program. And as undergrad, I have 2 years to wrap up. At the end of the first year, there was the option that we can apply to several master's level programs at Hopkins. They waive the application fee, and that you don't need GRE to even apply. And like, it was just like such a sure way. So again, at the end of my first year at Hopkins, I applied to that program. And before that, there was also a competitive scholarship from NIH. That scholarship comes with both money and also a guaranteed job at NIH. So I applied to that, went through a series of interviews and stuff, and then I was one of the winners for the scholarship. So that also resulted in some publication. And then I wanted to take advantage of applying to the master's programs. So I did. And then I actually got into 2 programs at Hopkins. The 2 programs, difference is that one is very quantitative and research methodology heavy. That is the epidemiology component. So there you will learn a lot of analysis and epidemiological studies, like they will cook you in that. Then the other one will do similar, but that one also have a lot of hands-on, you go and do field practicum. So coming from the community health background, I was zero in terms of the data and the research. So I decided to go with the epidemiology to cook myself in that. So I accepted that one. So by the time I finished with the undergrad, I already jumped into that, deferred my job with NIH. And I went and did the master's. Finished that, then decided, so I completed that, that was just last August.
Oh, okay.
And then started my internship thing with the NIH.
NIH.
And then the Hopkins and the NIH environment is very contagious. Like all the people surrounding you, you cannot help it, but you just need to think big, you need to dream big. So when you are there, it's not a question of, are you going to do a PhD or MD? The question is, when are you going to?
Wow.
That's what they ask. So the environment is so rich with a lot of people supporting you, a lot of people encouraging you. And so while there was the idea that, okay, I'll apply for PhD programs. And I did. So I applied to 2 programs at Hopkins again and then other universities. So again, the Hopkins program, I know one of the specific tracks I applied to, if I remember, they said there were about 300 plus applicants for that track, infectious disease epidemiology track. Out of that, I know they interviewed 12 of us. Out of the 12, they admitted 3. I was among the 3. So, and then also, I also got into the other program. So I got into 2 programs, similar programs at Hopkins. So this time I decided to go with the international health because I want to get exposure to the big health organizations that are responsible for health, particularly in low and middle income countries. And the International Health Department is more engaged with World Health Organization and the UN agencies, like UN, UNICEF, UNAIDS, and those are the kind of organizations I want to kind of get into because they do a lot if it comes to the health in low and middle income countries.
If you want to encourage the youth, talk to young people now, what's going to be your words?
The most important question you ask yourself is that what is the difference between me and the person who is successful? The idols we are watching around us. If there's anyone who even you sitting down here think they are better than you, just ask yourself one simple question. What is the difference between me and that person? At least in my circles at that time, the biggest difference was education. Like the biggest thing, children in the village who could get good food like 3 times a day, at least one of their parents is a teacher.
Okay.
So the concept was that all the people who could provide and live a decent life have education. And so for me, the lesson I picked earlier on was that if I ever want to be free, there was one surest way, and that was education.
All right, George. Mwinnya, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Unfortunately, that's all time will allow us. It's been very, very motivational and inspirational, actually. But one last thing, would you say you're living the American dream?
Living the American dream. I don't know. I think I'm still dreaming. So maybe one day we will live the dream. But for now, I think I'm still dreaming, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you have it. I've been speaking with George Mwinnya. You saw the background. It just shows that it doesn't really matter where you're coming from once you're ready to work hard at it and then you have the belief system. The sky is really a limit, really. My name is Lord Harris, and this has been People and Places.